welcome to Konnichiwa Value. My name is Rei Saito and I live in Japan, and I have a super big interest in stocks and value investing, and especially in the Japanese stock markets, because it's one of the most undervalued stock markets in the world, and it's definitely not being covered enough, especially by people who speak English like me. So today, I'm actually going to cover something that is more relevant to most people who read this newsletter. And that is how, as a casual investor, can you get exposure to the Japanese stock market? You see, it's usually very hard to invest directly in Japanese stocks if you don't live here or have a very specific broker, because most stockbrokers don't cover the Japanese market, individual stocks. So I still have good news for you though, because almost all stockbrokers enable you to invest in the two biggest indexes in Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the TOPIX. And so today I'm going to cover which of these two indexes should you invest in. It's actually not as easy as it sounds because they are very different. But at its core, the Nikkei 225 kind of represents the US Dow Jones, and the TOPIX is more a representation of the S&P 500. But if you go into the nitty-gritty of things, basically the Nikkei 225 is an average index of the 225 largest companies in Japan, and it's named after the Nihon Keizai Shimbun, or Japanese economic newspaper, also commonly known as, you guessed it, Nikkei. The cool thing is that the Nikkei is actually the oldest stock index in all of Asia. And after Japan's economic revision after the war in 1949, it's become the biggest and most trusted index in all of Asia. The interesting thing about the Nikkei 225 is that its weight is not based on the company's market valuation. It's actually solely based on the stock price. To give you an example what this means, take the company Nintendo and Itochu, which are both on the Nikkei 225. So Itochu is a much bigger company than Nintendo in terms of market valuation, but Nintendo's stock price is at 56,000 yen, while Itochu's stock price is at around 3,500 yen. That means that in the Nikkei 225's average index, the Nintendo stock has a much bigger effect than Itochu, even though Itochu is a much bigger company. The consequence of this weird compilation is that the Nikkei 225 is a relatively bad indicator of the overall Japanese economy. Another consequence of this weighing method is that it usually weighs stocks in the Japanese tech sector higher than other sectors. This is because when you have high prices of stock, it usually means that you have grown very fast, very quickly. And most of the stocks that have done that in Japan are tech stocks. So even though there are massive companies like Itochu, it's not valued at all as much as companies like Rakuten or Nintendo. So what about the TOPIX index? Well, actually, the TOPIX index was created in 1985 to more accurately follow the performance of the Japanese economy compared to the Nikkei 225. So first of all, the TOPIX is doing some really weird, complicated calculations to get a really good indication of the entire Japanese stock market. There's also no limit to how many stocks there are, but usually if you buy an index fund that's based on the TOPIX index, it's usually called TOPIX 1000, 500, or even 100 or 20. That means that you're buying the 1000 or 500 or 100 biggest companies in the TOPIX index, no matter the industry. But because in the way the TOPIX is set up, you are assured that whatever index you choose that follow the TOPIX main index, you will get a fair share of companies from all big sectors in the Japanese stock market. So in conclusion, what am I trying to say here? Which index should you invest in? Well, the TOPIX represents the Japanese stock market fund management fees, even though the Nikkei 225 funds are also very low. However, with that said, the Nikkei, as I said before, represents more tech stocks in Japan or faster growing companies. So in a way, even though it doesn't fully represent the Japanese stock market, it might actually be a better performing index if you believe in tech, which, to be fair, a lot of people do. So it's a hard one, but I'll say either TOPIX or Nikkei are really good ways to get exposure to the overall Japanese economy. If you really need to choose, I would choose the TOPIX. But if you only, let's say, have the Nikkei as an option of your stockbroker, I'd still go for Nikkei. It's a great index. It's very trusted. A lot of big investors has the Nikkei index as one of their main exposures to Japan. So you can't really go wrong with either one. If you have any questions, just feel free to send a comment to my Substack or to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.